Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Vision TV. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago, my girlfriend Carrie and I did a review on Paranormal Activity, and tonight I'm going to be doing a review on The Thing. Now it's kind of a touchy topic because I know that there's a lot of hardcore devoted fans out there to The Thing, so I'm going to try to be as fair as I possibly can. First of all, I'm not going to do my rant just yet, so I'm going to take the glasses off. Those are my ranting glasses. At the moment, I'm not in a ranting frame of mind. Alright, so in The Dan's Macabre, Stephen King writes, "The best horror movies will try to get at you on many different levels." So what makes The Thing work, in my opinion, is the themes of claustrophobia as well as xenophobia. The dogs, of course. Release the hounds! That's not a sound effect. That's my dogs really going crazy outside, and I have to shut up and wait for them, so cheers. The movie The Thing is effective because it operates on several different levels, some of which are what make the zombie subgenre of horror work. Whereas zombie films invite claustrophobic areas, that is, assuming that the claustrophobic area is zombie-free, obviously the protagonist wants to close themselves into a safe place where there are no zombies or whatever. It also invites a bit of paranoia, because if you let anyone in, have they been bitten? Are they lying to you about having been bitten? That type of thing. The Thing actually boxes us in with other refugees who could actually be the beast as well. However, obviously, The Thing just kind of all of a sudden opens up, the bodies open up in different ways and turn into different types of mouths and tentacles and claws and everything that really just is, it's more of a sudden type of a terror. It's not a declining of health, Bobby over there is not looking too good, and he says he hasn't been bitten, but I don't know, he's starting to look at us funny and lick his lips. I don't understand. Obviously, in zombie films, the paranoia works more slowly, shall we say. So the better of the Alien movies play on similar sets of phobias. Hardcore fans of John Carpenter's 1982 release, The Thing, have been very hesitant about watching this film, and it's understandable. First of all, the first thought, as everybody knows now, I'm sure, most everybody should know, is that this is not a remake. This is actually a prequel. And we're seeing a lot of prequels for some reason lately. Movies that take place in the 80s. Like I said, Paranormal Activity, 80s, The Thing. So we hear a lot of slang, we see a lot of technology, a lot of clothing styles and music and what have you from the 80s, which in these films, which is really they make it kind of fun. And I have my own theory about why that is, too, that I might get into later. We'll see how much time we have. But the set of horror themes that really make it work, once again, claustrophobia and xenophobia, as well as just all-around paranoia, really play well into this, because obviously the whole premise is you don't know who is a thing and who is not, and part of the entertainment comes from them trying to figure out who is a monster and who's not. Now, the monster effects are really, really cool. I've got to say that. There's not a lot of character development going on. There's, like in Dawn of the Dead, let's say the original George Romero Dawn of the Dead, yes, with all of the strawberry fruit punch looking blood and what have you that was in that film, the movie just had a certain plausibility because the characters were so real. I mean, we saw these characters going through these horrific sets of circumstances, and we saw that sometimes the worst monster is actually not a zombie at all, but an actual human being that has been subjected to a post-apocalyptic zombie world and becomes a monster of sorts, like the roving gangs that came in and took over. Okay, the 2011 release of The Thing doesn't really ever delve into those deep human issues, in my opinion. At least certainly not to the degree that George Romero's Dawn of the Dead did. There is certainly an us against them type of theme that plays out, and of course the xenophobic aspects where you've got the Norwegian scientific team and you got the Americans. You're wondering how they're going to align themselves, and you're watching this paranoia play out. And it really makes for some suspenseful moments, I will say that. One feature of the film that I felt that the film could have done better without is the non-stop suspense. From the very beginning of the film, around the very beginning, particularly after the creature first appears, it's just non-stop suspense. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but the creature is not bound by anything, really. The creature could be anywhere at any time, and I feel that in order for horror movies to be effective, there has to be a safe zone, so to speak, because if the audience is not given that time, even if the safe zone is breached and monsters get in, it just seems somewhat tiresome when you're at the edge of your seat all the time. There's no surprise, really, when the monster does actually come out. It's like when the monster finally does come out, you're like, well, okay, whatever. Kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street. That's one reason that the first Nightmare on Elm Street was so good, was because it was completely new in the way that it handled how the monster would strike. The monster, Freddy Krueger, would strike in your dreams. So what it did was it established that the dreams were where you were in danger of being attacked. While you were awake, while you were talking to your friends, all of that was just getting you ready for the ensuing attack, if you will. And of course the fun comes in when the safe zone is breached, when the characters don't know if they are dreaming or not. If just all of a sudden Freddy shows up and, wow, well, I was dreaming and I thought this was real. And that really kind of catches the audience off guard. You've got to lull the audience into being comfortable at some points in time, just so that when that attack occurs, they are truly taken off guard, and it truly creates that sense of horror that people go to see horror movies for. Overall, I thought the movie was very well done. Of course, I thought that the creature effects were very cool. There are a series of questions that the hardcore fans of the John Carpenter thing have speculated on. My favorite of the questions is, what is the thing's relationship with the spacecraft that was submerged in the ice? There's been different speculation on this. And one of the speculations is that the alien beings that were piloting that ship that crashed actually picked up the thing as some kind of a virus or parasite or what have you from another world. That would explain why the ship crashed into Earth to begin with. I really like that theory. That is my favorite theory, because it's hard for me to think of this amorphous creature that can shapeshift or whatever, and seems to only be driven by some kind of animal instinct, piloting this complicated spacecraft through outer space, and that its species or whatever is capable of even constructing a spacecraft like that to begin with. Now that might seem tedious for some, and it might seem ridiculous for others, but really, in order to enjoy a film, there has to be a certain degree of plausibility involved. If there's absolutely nothing believable about it whatsoever, then it's really not that enjoyable. It ends up coming across as being kind of ridiculous. A lot of people don't like certain movies, and they don't know why. I think a lot of times it's because certain questions are not answered. There's too much ambiguity. The film seems to pose these questions and hint that part of the fun of watching the film is to figure this out, and yet it never actually explains this at the end. I feel like films like that are not as fun to watch, that don't give you the amount of information required to figure this out on your own, or just outright explain it. There was something in there for the hardcore Thing fan, so if you're a hardcore Thing fan, you don't want to watch this new movie, I completely understand. However, understand this, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will tell you that there's something in there really, really fun for hardcore Thing fans. There's a question that the John Carpenter 1982 film poses that gets answered in this film. I'm not going to tell you what that is because it would spoil the fun. But all I got to say is, keep watching at the end. Don't just run out of the theater. Keep watching. Okay, so now for the synopsis. The film is good. It's worth watching. The key factor you have to go into it remembering is that this is an animal all of its own. This is kind of like The Shining book versus The Shining movie. They're both good in their own way. However, the film does have some awesome special effects, some great scary moments, and in my opinion, it is a worthy chapter to the John Carpenter 1982 classic. Alright, well this has been Horror Vision TV. I've been Mark, and we'll see you next time.